On Capitol Hill, the debate over government spending took a sharp turn this week as Senator John Kennedy defended President Trump's proposal to trim billions from the federal budget. In a floor speech that mixed humor with hard numbers, Kennedy urged Congress to support a $9.1 billion rescission package, a plan the White House says targets wasteful and unnecessary programs buried within a $7 trillion federal budget. But beneath the rhetoric lies a larger question. Is this a meaningful act of fiscal discipline or a symbolic gesture in a much bigger spending battle?
President Trump's going to send us over what's called a rescission bill. What does that mean? Well, we've got a $7 trillion budget, okay? I don't know how much of that $7 trillion is waste, but every fair-minded person would have to agree that there's some money being spent in that $7 trillion that shouldn't be spent. It just shouldn't. It's wasted money. And so President Trump and this Congress made one of its objectives trying to reduce spending. Not spending that we need to reduce, but spending that needs to be reduced. I call it spending porn. And the president has sent us a bill. He's saying to Congress, I want you to reduce spending in the current budget by $9.1 billion. And let me tell you what the spending, what constitutes the spending I want to reduce. Well, first, $9.1 billion out of a $7 trillion budget, we're not talking about a lot of money here. We're talking about 0.1%. That's all. That's point one. Point two, you need to look at what the president's asking us to cut out. I'll just give you a couple of examples. I didn't make this up. The president is saying we're giving $3 million to Iraq to produce Sesame Street. Maybe we could use that money for something else. The president is saying we're giving $3 million to Zambia for circumcisions and vasectomies. The president's saying we don't need to do that. We've got other priorities. We're giving $500,000 to Rwanda to buy electric buses. The president is saying to us, Congress, we don't need to be spending the money on that. There are more important things. We're spending $67,000 to give insect powder to kids in Madagascar. I don't even know what insect powder is, but the president's asking us to cut it out. We're giving $3,600,000 to Haiti for pastry cooking classes, for cyber cafes, for dance focus groups, for male prostitutes. The president's saying, I don't think so. I don't think that the American people support giving their hard-earned money to male prostitutes in Haiti. So he's asking us to cut it out. He's asking us to reduce the budget by $833,000 because some of President Biden's bureaucrats gave a contract to transgender people, sex workers, and their clients in Nepal. The president's saying, I don't want to do that. And he's right. That's enough. You get the idea. That's why I call it spending porn. Triggers your gag reflex. You look at this stuff and you go, what in God's name? Who decided to do this? Well, Congress didn't. The bureaucrats did. It's money we appropriated, but we didn't tell them to go spend money, $833,000, and give to sex workers in Nepal. They just took the money we appropriated and used it for that. And so the president is asking us to do what's called a rescission, to cancel the spending.
Kennedy outlined several examples of expenditures the president wants to eliminate, including $3 million to Iraq for producing local versions of Sesame Street, $3 million to Zambia for circumcision and vasectomy programs, $3.6 million to Haiti for pastry classes, dance groups, and community programs Kennedy described as wasteful. He also cited $833,000 in funding for outreach to sex workers in Nepal, calling it an example of how bureaucratic discretion can steer taxpayer dollars toward questionable projects. Kennedy argued that the cuts, while modest compared to the size of the federal budget, send an important signal. He added that members of Congress who campaign on fiscal restraint but oppose the measure should hide their head in a bag, calling the debate a test of political sincerity. The Louisiana senator's tone reflected a mix of frustration and challenge, highlighting what he views as Washington's habit of promising fiscal discipline without ever acting on it.
Now, I have listened, I've been here 8 years, Mr. President, and I've listened to a whole bunch of people talk about the need to reduce spending. But you got to watch what people do, not what they say, because talk is cheap. And around here, I've learned pretty quickly that reducing spending, it's like going to heaven. I want to go to heaven. I bet you want to go to heaven, Mr. President. I bet our guests in the gallery want to go to heaven. But everybody wants to go to heaven. Raise your hand if you're ready to take the trip today. Most people, you are, sir, and I admire that. But most people want to live a little longer. And that's the way it is with reducing spending around here. I want to reduce spending. I support it, but not just yet, because I've got this project. Well, and I've listened to that. And I've especially listened to it for the past 100 days. Go get them, President Trump. Reduce that spending. We're behind you 1,000%. Well, he has. He has. 0.1% he's asking us to reduce. And I'm not saying senators shouldn't ask questions and make some changes if they need to be made, but here's the bottom line. It is gut check time. It is gut check time. You either believe in reducing spending or you don't. And if you talk the game and say, let's reduce spending, and you vote against this bill, in my opinion, you ought to hide your head in a bag. Because you will be able to cut the hypocrisy with a knife. It's real, real hard, Mr. President, to preach temperance from a bar stool. It's gut check time. We need to pass this bill. I yield the floor.
Question now for Washington. Is this proposed $9.1 billion cut a sign of real fiscal reform, or simply another act in Congress's ongoing political theater? Even Kennedy's allies acknowledge the proposal won't make a measurable impact on America's $35 trillion debt. Still, it underscores a larger issue, the widening gap between political rhetoric and real fiscal action. And as the nation heads into another election cycle, talk of spending cuts is once again dominating the headlines, even as the federal deficit continues its upward climb. The key takeaway: Senator Kennedy's remarks highlighted a persistent reality on Capitol Hill. While lawmakers frequently decry wasteful spending, few are willing to identify it publicly. Whether this signals meaningful fiscal reform or merely political posturing will ultimately be determined by the actions Congress takes moving forward, not the words spoken on the floor. For straightforward, in-depth coverage of Congress, subscribe to Congress Unpacked. We'll continue holding those in power accountable and breaking down the decisions that impact Americans every day.